My child, to obtain perfect purity of heart, it is not enough to cherish a good will, to meditate and pray fervently, to confess often and devoutly. These means are very efficient and necessary, and therefore never to be omitted nor neglected, but alone they do not suffice, since they are not wont to pluck up completely the roots of vices and defects. It is necessary then to use besides another means, whereby you may, so to speak, exterminate the noxious roots, and thus render your heart perfectly clean. These sweet and wholesome effects are produced in a marvellous manner, by self-examination, an exercise apparently trifling indeed, and a small matter, but in itself very efficient, and more deeply penetrating than any two-edged instrument, reaching even to the diving of the soul, and the discerning of spirits, and searching into the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. Nor does it serve merely to root out evil habits and defects, but what is more wonderful, to acquire solid virtues, and even to attain to perfection. This self-examination is threefold. The first, which is used to collect oneself in the heart and inspect it for a short time, observing when it is moved and with what things it busies itself, or what it has done and in what manner, what it should do in the future and how. Opportunities of performing a very short self-examination of this sort are wont to present themselves frequently, when, for example, you begin any more of the more important actions of the day, and when you have performed them, when something is presented to your senses or to your mind, by which you may be allured or tempted. Also, when you have fallen into some defect, when you meet with any difficulty which may occasion trouble or disturb you, and lastly, as often as during some length of time you have not looked into your heart. Now this can be easily done at any time and in any place, even while others are present, and without attracting their attention. In the exercise itself there is no difficulty whatsoever. At first indeed some attention should be used, but no straining of the mind, and in a short time you shall begin to acquire a holy and consoling habit, and gather from it the sweetness and the most wholesome fruits. The second is a general examination, by which twice or at least once every day you devote a short time, some minutes exclusively, to asking of yourself an account of your way of living. Having briefly returned thanks to God, and begged for divine light, inspect and scrutinize how since you did last examine yourself in your exterior and interior. Examine your thoughts, words, deeds. See where you have sinned or failed then. Carefully mark each sin or defect, at least mentally. If you have practically learned something of the interior life, place your heart near to mine. Compare and notice the difference between the thoughts, sensations and actions of both. After, in this manner, you have discovered your faults and failings, then see and acknowledge your unthankfulness for my divine favours. Form an act of sorrow. As perfectly as possible, beg for grace to amend yourself and to make better progress. Lastly, the particular examination is that by means of which you exerted yourself to root out separately only one vice or defect at a time. Most wonderful is the power and the incredible, the efficiency of this exercise. Would that you could understand it well, my child, and that you did perform it in a proper manner. There is no habit so deep-rooted, no vice so great, which by this means cannot be overcome and subdued, for with God's grace it can in some manner do all things. How many sinners have by its means been freed from vices, which had grown on them like a second nature? How many souls has enabled to cleanse themselves thoroughly? How many has it helped to reach perfection? Whatever defects then you may have, be of good cheer, my child. You are sure of victory, sure of future freedom. If you use this means diligently and perseveringly, attack first that vice or defect that may be a stumbling block or a just cause of offence to your neighbour. Afterwards, the one that seems to be your chief fault. When the leader is overthrown, then the rest are easily overcome. Now your method of proceeding shall be this: resolve firmly and considerably that during the day you will shun what you make chosen to be avoided in a particular manner. At the same time beg for grace that you may be faithful to your resolution. Then twice or maybe just once a day, according as you make the general self-examination, you shall also search and see how often since the last scrutiny you have failed in your special resolve, and mark the number of times. Afterwards grieve not only for your faults in general, but also for these defects in particular, and resolve again to be especially on your guard against them, and for this end also special grace. Meanwhile, my child, when you perceive yourself growing in some way indifferent or careless, you inflict upon yourself some small punishment, and this as often as you offend against your particular examination. But so that you may use rightly and constantly these and other means, you need a guide to direct, to teach, to fashion you, keep you in or stir you up, and cheer you on at all times. No one when left to himself can walk with safety in the path of the spiritual and interior life, for often he will be exposed to the danger of going astray, of losing heart, or falling into the snares of the foe, no more of even perishing. Were you a saint or a chosen apostle, you would need some guide. Was not Paul, although a vessel of election, to carry my name among the nations, at my command instructed and directed by Ananias? Were not the saints trained to holiness by others and led to a holy life? Pray therefore, my child, that you may be worthy to find a guide according to my heart, either in your confessor or superior, or some other person who possesses authority, skill and experience in spiritual matters, and a practical knowledge of the interior life. To such a one, my child, occasionally make known your heart, at certain times give some account of yourself, that you may know whether you advance rightly, what you must correct, and how it must be done, on what you ought to insist, and in what manner it is to be accomplished. The subjects concerning which this interior manifestation should be made are usually the disclosing of the soul state or habitual feeling, whether it be peaceful or agitated, what longing for a more perfect life you feel within yourself, what obstacles embarrass you, to what practices of devotion and mortification you are wont to apply yourself, what method you have in prayer and meditation, with what relish and fruit you advanced by this method, what spiritual books you read, and whether they agree with your present degree of your interior life, whether you read in a manner proper and profitable, in what manner you approach the sacraments, with what preparation, with what feeling of piety, with what thanksgiving, with what results, how you make your self-examinations, with what painstaking and with what fruit, how you perform the duties of your state of life, the obligations of your office, your ordinary actions, by what motive or principle, whether of nature or of grace, with what object, with what end you have in view, in what manner you deport yourself towards others, with what disposition of heart, with what profit or loss to yourself and to them, with what fidelity you obey God's inspirations, how you feel disposed towards me, finally, with what degree you relish the sentiments of my heart. To you, my child, modestly and religiously, with humble candour and docile charity, make known such and similar matters, sometimes one and then another, according as spiritual necessity or usefulness may require. All of this, if you should perform it in this manner, you shall find easy and most useful and full of consolation.